At the beginning of the story, we are shown a huge mansion, and the voiceover says that he hates people. A group of rich freaks gathered around some guy and looked at him with mockery. The mustachioed dude points at him and asks everyone to pay attention to the new product that has entered his collection. They put a luminous ball in the boy's hand and made him literally a living lamp. Such a thing is quite famous among rich freaks, so he is sure that they have heard about it. This guy is our main character, Bai Xing, with 1,200 units of strength. Even the government paid attention to him when he awakened his weak ability, and now he serves as a floor lamp. The crowd just laughs at him, and the mustachioed dude says that he will sell him at a discount, because if it weren't for his kind heart, the main character would be sold at a discount on the black market. While these freaks continued to laugh louder at Bai Xing, he was already thinking that there were no good people in this world, and that he would soon finish everyone off here. His gaze becomes more severe, and he swears that he will definitely destroy all of humanity, because such monsters should not exist on the planet. We are told the backstory of how this world became completely rotten after the statue of the Great Valkyrie began to mutate. She summoned huge stone statues 100 meters high, which soon razed the cities to the ground. Mana portals turned into gates between dimensions, after which hordes of aliens began to fill their planet. Adventure Island was completely consumed by a harmful mold and was soon captured by demons. A small mystery shop in a botanical town suddenly turned into a flat book and began appearing in different places around the world. People, animals, and even entire buildings were simply drawn to this book and never returned from it. No matter how strange it may be, absolutely any object that people touched could become infected. In about half a year, as a result of all these terrible events, the planet's population decreased from 12 billion to 6. And it was at this moment that mysterious heroes appeared who began to be called Seekers. These were those people who were not affected by the infection, but on the contrary, it gave them superpowers. They immediately won worldwide respect for fame and fortune. Their task was to cleanse the infected, and they became the last hope of humanity. But as for our main character, he just took it and was reborn. And it seems that he is very proud of it. He always believed that all his problems were only because of people, and therefore he thought that they were not worthy of life. He decided to start with ordinary school children because the exam for those who want to become Seekers was about to begin. Suddenly, some strange blonde man comes up to him and says that he was just looking for him, thinking that our boy decided to hide among the crowd. The blonde decides to warn Bunsen so that he doesn't lose this time. This guy is just one of the freaks who ruined his life. While the boy was remembering everything that this man had done to him, the blonde didn't like the fact that the main character didn't answer him for so long. Maybe he swallowed his tongue. Suddenly, this idiot just starts screaming for everyone to pay attention to our boy. He announces that Ban Xing will now once again take the Seeker exam. It's surprising that 3 years ago, he managed to show 1,200 units of strength, the real hope of humanity. All the students immediately remembered our main character and began to laugh at him, saying that he was a complete loser. One guy in the crowd couldn't believe that Ban Xing had such a level of power, and the main character thinks that if he had that much, he would immediately go to the Seeker's headquarters. This damn blonde pats him on the shoulder and mockingly asks if everyone's attention has given him strength. If suddenly the main character can become a Seeker, then the blonde will be able to sell him profitably to pay off a small part of his debt. But if he fails, then he will simply sell him to someone and feed the bones to his daughter's dog. But our boy did not lose heart and still continues to smile because everything is repeated exactly the same as last time, while the main character has not yet been reborn. But unfortunately, last time this blonde simply died from infection, and Ban Xing simply could not repay him for all the humiliation. The blonde was shocked by such audacity, and says that Ban Xing will now have to answer for everything that he just said. He doesn't even resist and asks him to hit him straight in the face, but this could be the reason why the main character fails the exam. The boy has become a little crazy and warns that the blonde will have to explain to his boss that he returned to him again without money. Realizing that if he just beats the main one now, then the blonde will get it himself, so he lets him go. But finally he says that Ban Xing has been hiding from them for 3 years, and it would be better for him to try to pass this damn exam. The main character makes a pistolet out of his fingers and says that he marked this damn blonde. He said that they would definitely see each other later, so let him not run away anywhere. While our main character was passing by the crowd, he heard others saying not to approach him and not even look him in the eyes because he is not normal. All the students were angry with him and asked him to quickly get out of here because they were too weak for him. But he simply ignored their words because he understood that all those people around him were simply moral monsters who did not deserve to live. Suddenly, the action moves back 3 years to the moment when the Seeker exam was held in high school. Our boy gave a speech about how he wants to become the most powerful Seeker on the planet and destroy all contaminated territories. Around the age of 16, everyone awakens all certain abilities. and if they fit the required parameters, then such children are accepted into the ranks of seekers. Talent is a special skill of the owner. Level is the amount of energy that can be spent. The higher the level unit, the stronger the ability, and the greater the number of uses. Having learned that the main character had as many as 1,200 units of strength, everyone was shocked and began to believe that this child was the future of their country. The school principal was asked to go on stage. His name was Pushkin. His ability was to foresee the future, but his level of power was unknown to anyone. He put his hand on the head of the main character in order to see what ability would awaken in him in the future. So far, he had not seen anything. But there was one thing. The director clearly saw that someday the time would come and the boy would become incredibly strong. He would shine brighter than any of the stars in the heavens. All the students were simply shocked because even the most important defender of their country had never received such a prediction. They thought that the main character was a real genius. Banshing was incredibly happy, because if he had succeeded, then his family would finally live a full life, and they would have food at home, which was always in short supply. His father would then no longer have to carry bricks at a construction site, and perhaps he would even have the courage to meet a girl. But suddenly it began. The main character was constantly featured in news reports and newspapers. The best companies were ready to offer him a job. All this time, the boy was simply beside himself with joy, exactly until the moment when his super ability awakened. It was just an ordinary sphere of light that was classified as an F-rank ability. He was depressed because it was just a clot of light the size of a fist, no power, it couldn't even emit heat. There was only light. All those roads that opened before him, it turns out, led into a stinking abyss filled with monsters, and having awakened such a worthless ability, the boy instantly became a nobody. Of course, society was completely disappointed in him because corporations invested a lot of money in him, despite the fact that he has 1,200 units of power, and the only thing he can do is become the king of light bulbs. After all this, his mother fell ill with a serious illness, the corporation took away their house for debts, and his father had to flee the country with his sister to avoid these huge debts. In turn, they decided to force our main character to take the Seeker exam so that he could pay off his debt. At the moment, everything is going exactly as in the boy's past life. And even that girl in the background with a huge sword was also part of his plan. After all of humanity is destroyed, she will be the only one left alive. Suddenly, the girl asked all the students to pay attention to her, because infected people had been released onto campus for the exam, and tests would begin soon. They will have to divide into teams, find the infected and seal them. Outside help is completely prohibited, and the exam will be conducted under the strict supervision of the commission. This girl's name is Xiaojai. She is one of the examiners and announces the start of their test. All the students immediately began to run away in panic, but only our main character stood calmly. The girl begged to be accepted into the team because she had excellent healing skills and a strength level of 28. One of the examiners noticed that many students agreed in advance on the composition of the teams and considered this extremely unfair. The girl with red hair noticed that it would be much more difficult for individuals to cope with the exam. The best tactic is to gather a group as soon as possible. Xiaoji made a very crazy face and said that the main thing in this test is to survive, because a living seeker is a good seeker. The red-haired lady says that 95% of the participants have already formed their teams. Not a single person has an ability of rank A. All the rest have abilities of rank B and niche. The girl also wanted to tell her about units of strength, and at first it seemed to her that everyone had less than 100, but suddenly one student attracted her attention. Seeing our main character who had 1,200 units of strength, she was simply shocked and could not understand why such a student even needed to take the exam. This examiner's name is Hu Min, and he noticed that not only is this guy still passing the exam, but he hasn't even found a team yet. Some dude simply begged others to be accepted into the team because he really wanted to become a seeker. But instead, they simply pushed the boy away, saying that they didn't need pathetic weaklings. This all happened in front of the main character. He came up and said with a smile that since they both didn't have a team, they could become partners. The dude turned out to be very strange, and started shouting at Bansin, accusing him of not being included in the team because the main character was standing next to him, forgetting that he himself was of a very low rank. Suddenly he hits the guy, saying that this idiot should not dare to approach him anymore. Now Bansin is lying on the grass. Our hero remembers the moment when he met this guy. He was very friendly to him when he found out that the guy had the opportunity to work in a big company and asked him to take him with him. He immediately began bragging to the others about how he was an incredible fighter that they could have on their team while our hero wiped the cherry juice off his face. Suddenly, that beautiful lady with a huge sword comes up to him and helps Bansing by giving him a napkin to remove the cherry juice. Our main character asks the girl to be careful in this exam because her hidden abilities have not yet awakened. But she asks the guy not to worry about her because everyone already knows that the girl has no talent or special abilities. Bansing has long known about what is going to happen in the future, so he asks the lady not to despair ahead of time. Suddenly, a guy named Ma Huzhong approaches her. His ability is an iron fist. He asks the girl to give him information about which team she is on. It turns out that her cousin decided to help her a little, and therefore hired several people so that the girl could pass the exam. She decides to ask if Bansing can join their team, which greatly surprises the main character. But Ma Huzhong says that this is not a problem, because a girl's word is law for them. Especially if he pays them well, her cousin will already take care of this. The girl with the big sword is called Yue Xin, and the main character is interested in the reason why she helps him, because this can completely change the course of history. But she just turns and says that maybe she just liked the boy, but it would be better for him not to fill his head with such thoughts. The main character simply hands over his documents to that guy and expects that they will cooperate perfectly. The big guy was a little shocked and asked where the guy knew him from, and then the main character decides that it's time for a lie. He summons his ball of light and says that this is his special ability called the Ball of Truth. With the help of it, he is able to read thoughts, which is how he learned the name of this guy. They were both in shock. The girl couldn't understand why there were so many rumors about the main character that he was a loser, but Bansing said that he was pretending in order not to show his potential. After a while, the exam finally began, and the examiners asked all teams to go to the school grounds to start looking for the infected. We are shown different team members and their abilities. A guy can control lava, his name is Chen Zhao, and a girl named Gray has the ability to control a creeping vine. The cat girl, whose name is Liu Zhenku, has a stunning stance, and Wang Yuchui has the ability of advanced healing. The blonde was a little confused and hoped that his team would manage to find at least one ghost here. Suddenly, the girl Vine turns to him and says that she felt some strange aura and points to the bushes. Catgirl activates her powers and says that she will clear the way for her team. Before I can run even a couple of meters, some kind of plant begins to burst out of the ground. This thing turns out to be simply huge. It is a carnivorous four-leaf clover, a demonic clover. Suddenly, several more of the same smaller plants appear behind the girls, but they are just as aggressive against the guys. The Vine Girl shouted that there were too many of these creatures here, and she simply could not cope with all of them at once. The team captain asked the Cat Girl to stun them and buy the team some time. She uses her ability, but warns the captain that she can only hold them for 8 seconds. But he says with a satisfied face that this is enough for him, and then uses his ability, a magma strike. Huge flames begin to burst out of the ground, frying these damn plants. After all the plants were destroyed, the head of the detachment asked if everyone else was okay. Suddenly, the cat girl finds the core of the main flower. The captain reports that they managed to seal the demonic flower. Now the core needs to be handed over to the examiner. If you plant this core, a new flower will soon grow, though not so big, but rather a byproduct, essentially an endless resource for the production of flowers. He says that the sealed objects are the true treasures of humanity. If they can get more of them, they will extend the glory of humanity for centuries. The actions are transferred to the team of our main character. The girl asked him to be more attentive because they could stumble upon infected creatures at any moment. But he asks her not to worry because the captain of their team is a person of rank A. But in his thoughts, the main character was extremely unhappy that they still could not find anyone, and he cursed Ma Huzhong for this. He only says that these creatures appear too suddenly, and therefore they need to continue the belts. But our boy had a different opinion. After all, their captain still has not managed to find the very infected person who has the ability to create an area of infection. The area of infection is the territory that is created from the infected. This territory is completely separated from the rest of the world. The huge guy asks our main character to use his luminous sphere to illuminate the area of that warehouse for him. The boy immediately got excited, but the girl started arguing with him. Doesn't this team really have flashlights with them? But suddenly our main character just started crying, saying that he would gladly help them illuminate the territory. He was so glad that his useless ability would be useful to someone for the first time in a long time. He didn't even think much, and dragged that big guy along with him to finally show his abilities for the first time. But this all turns out to be the boy's secret plan, because he knows perfectly well everything that will happen. As soon as they took a couple of steps, a strange, dark territory appeared around them. The action moves to the examiners, and the red-haired girl reports that they have lost contact with one of the teams. It seems that the only infected rank C is involved in this. But this lady asks that the girl not worry so much about the students, because death is a completely normal outcome of this exam. Meanwhile, the team found itself in a strange place that was filled with spiders. Our main character tried to light their way. We are shown a new creature that attacked our guys. This is a demonic spider with a total strength of 124. The captain asks that everyone else stay behind him and listen carefully to his commands. The guy in the headphones was able to control sounds. He had to make sure that the spider did not wake up. And the guy with a strange hairstyle was from a clan who could control spiders. He had to subordinate the consciousness of this creature to his will. But the guy in the headphones says that first we need to deal with our main character, because with such an ability as he has, he will only get in the way. Suddenly the girl begins to stand up for him and asks him to mind his own business because no one ordered him to kill other students. The captain says that this girl's words are an order, so the boy should stop coming up with strange ideas and focus on the mission. And he gives the order to the main character to act as a flashlight and illuminate their path. The guy with the weird hair comes up with a cool plan to hang the guy from the ceiling to make a cool lamp. The whole team starts laughing at him, and the girl asks our main character to be careful because something wrong is going on here. Suddenly he grabs her hand and she asks what the hell he is doing, but he wondered what kind of magic sword she had. He says that they are both worthless fighters, but still he takes away her sword and asks for permission to protect her because he is still a man. The boy asks her not to pay attention to the fact that he is so thin because the fire of justice burns in him, and he also noticed something strange. The main character declares that something wrong is happening with the shadows, and someone might be hiding there, so he simply breaks the ground with a sword. While the whole team was shocked by his actions, the boy told a member of the Z family to come out of the ground. Bunsin's surprisingly strange guess turned out to be true, and a dude appeared from underground who praised the main character for his sharp eye. This freak's name is Ji-Yu's Guan. His ability is this black shadow, and he invites the boy to take part in the experiment. He will have to transfer his power to him, of course, for a good payment. Suddenly, the main character remembers his past life and his past battle with this freak. Then he managed to defeat all the team members, and even connect that guy with the spider to help him. But this time, everything will be different. And our boy asks this freak to look carefully because now he will show him what real humiliation is. Suddenly, he says that it's time to show his true strength and uses an ability called the Hand of God. He can give the enemy any ability. But after this ability is taken away by the owner, the enemy receives damage equal to the power of this skill. The rest of the team were simply in shock and understood that they needed to stop this idiot as soon as possible, otherwise they would all simply die in this cave. The captain asked all the guys to give it their all, or the explosion would hit them too. After a short minute of silence, all three begin to point and laugh at the main character, saying that he is a complete loser. The captain said that Ban Xing is a real cretin who lives in the world of magic manga, because it is simply impossible for the boy to be able to gain the ability a second time. Suddenly that dude tells the kids to shut up and then sends a barrage of dark aura at them. This idiot is not going to stand it any longer until the team finishes their conversations and therefore decides to attack the girl first. At this point, the team captain decides to enter the battle and tells the dude to first withstand the blow of his stone fist, and only then they will let him go. The guy makes a huge fist out of a pile of stones, but the rest of the team says that they need to deal with the spider first. The girl began to cry out of fear because she is the weakest member of the team and wondered if she could only awaken her abilities. Would she be able to defeat him? But the main character asks the girl to pay attention to him, saying that he is able to change her destiny. Suddenly, the main character simply throws out a ball of light that flies around the entire cave. The bad guy clearly didn't like this trick and asks the boy not to interrupt his fun. He wants to create a wall of shadows, but suddenly this sphere simply breaks through his defense. He simply cannot believe that his wall was broken through. This ray of light hits the girl's head, and then she begins to remember various moments from her life. The bad guy was extremely scared because he understood that now, the girl would begin to awaken her true power. While our main character stood aside, the dude managed to unravel his hidden ability, which awakens secret talents in other people. He is simply beside himself with joy, and again begins to offer the boy to sign the contract with him that he offered earlier. This is quite a lucrative offer. But the guy immediately refuses, saying that he doesn't like working with strange guys. And besides, this idiot will definitely be a corpse, so Bang Sin will definitely not get his salary, and while he cannot understand what is happening, the girl develops strange abilities. The girl began to be covered in a fiery aura, and he thought that she had awakened the ability to control flames. She simply could not believe her words. From that moment on, he could control the temperature, and her power level became 1200. While the lady could not understand what to do with the new strength, the main character shouted at her to move and not stand in one place. She looked at the guy with the clear intention of finishing him off. He was so scared that he asked his cousin to cool down a little and become more familiar with her abilities. He said that Ma Huzhang would definitely help her with this, and the guy with the stone fist asked the girl not to hold a grudge against him. But she too is not a miss and simply throws this guy away with the help of new strength, turning him into kebabs. Her cousin was simply shocked because even he could not finish off a rank B warrior with one blow. Realizing that things smell like frying, he calls on his shadow cover and tries to escape from the battlefield as quickly as possible. While he was moving in the guise of black slurry, the guy tried to come up with a plan on how to win because he had awakened an advanced level of temperature control. The only drawback is that the heat for the skill is taken from the host. He just managed to get behind this girl and, using the ability of the Shadow Blade, he tries to finish her off with one blow. The cousin asks the girl to quickly go to the other world for the sake of her entire family, but here our main character enters the battle and says that he himself is not safe. Banshing gave this girl her own power level, which is 200, and one of the strongest abilities of rank A. Does her cousin really think that he can defeat such a strong warrior? These words only begin to anger the guy even more, and he decides to use his shadow control skill to the maximum. But the guy doesn't even have time to react and immediately receives a powerful blow from a fiery aura. Our main character immediately begins to laugh at this loser, because it was brave of him to catch such a blow with his face. Suddenly, the fiery aura stops working, and the girl cannot understand what is happening to her and begins to cry. The boy tries to calm her down by saying that now her heart is beating too fast, but this is normal after the first battle. He specially took out a spare jacket from her backpack so that she would not freeze. Looking at the burning guy, she simply cannot believe that he did such a terrible thing, because her cousin has always been very kind to her. The main character decides to add fuel to the fire by saying that this guy wanted to seize the post of head and finish off her parents. But now she doesn't have to worry about the Vedas. Now she can protect them with the help of new power. Suddenly, the girl simply falls to the ground unconscious. Before saying thank you that Ban Xing helped her realize her strength, the boy thinks that the lady had a very difficult time. The guy's ability is activated again, and he's a little shocked. This is only his second rebirth. But now the girl's ability to control temperature has passed to the main character. He is surprised that the ability turns out to be very beneficial, because not only was he able to help Yue Xin, but he also received a very strong talent in his collection and 9 more points in addition. Behind our hero, for some reason, one of the team members appears who has merged into a terrible monster along with a spider and attacks the guy. This psychopath was just waiting for the right moment to attack these two, just when the girl lost consciousness and the moment came for the attack. But even in his current state, the guy manages to dodge the spider's fangs, taking his girlfriend with him along the way. Putting her on the ground, he asks Spider-Man not to be so self-confident, because not only Yue Xin was capable of fighting. But he doesn't seem to hear him, saying that the main character will not have a second chance to hide, and now he will go to the next world. Ban Xing thinks about the fact that this ability requires a lot of energy, and the girl could lose consciousness from hypothermia. He simply takes out a bottle of water from his backpack. It seems the boy has figured out how to use the loss of temperature to his advantage. Suddenly, he turns the stream of water into an ice sword with a temperature of absolute 0. Now the main character's power level has become 1209, and he tells Spider-Man that he is not going to hide from him. The guy with the strange hairstyle asks his partner not to worry, because they will quickly finish off the main character, because they still have an ace up their sleeve. The guy with the headphones boasts that he has already defeated several strong B-rank warriors, so he just needs a little time to deal with him. Spider-Man says that this is not a problem for him, and uses his poison web ability. But Ban Xing didn't even flinch and simply waved his sword and used the absolute 0 cut. It also turns out to be very smart. The web consists of protein, and after freezing it simply crumbles into small pieces. After this, the main character simply laughs at his opponents because they said so much that they would easily defeat him. But in reality, they could not oppose him. Now it's Bun Sin's turn to attack these idiots, and without thinking for a long time, he simply chops off several legs from the spider. O asks that Spider-Man not dare to go to the next world so quickly, because he really wants to test several of his abilities. After this, the main character freezes the spider, preventing it from moving normally anymore. His theory turned out to be true, and he was able to freeze the poison of this spider. Now he has an ice poison weapon, and the sword has also become much larger than before. Ban Xing, realizing that he has already played enough with these losers, decides that he needs to end the battle quickly. At the last moment, the guy asks not to kill him because he is the owner of the demon spider, and if he dies, then control of the area will disappear. The main character realized that from the very beginning, Spider-Man had a plan to frame them and make their death look like an accident during the sealing. Until he gets rid of the evidence, area control cannot be removed. Taking advantage of this convenient moment, the guy decides to disconnect from his pet and use Jonathan Joestar's tactics, quickly running away from the battlefield. If his skill weakens but the barrier itself falls, then these two will be able to safely escape through it. The guy in the headphones says that our main character will not survive because his sound ability will simply kill him on the spot. The huge spider regains its consciousness and begins to attack Ban Sin. He thinks that now he needs to deal with him, and then with those two. Meanwhile, he had already finished creating his spell, which would be simply impossible for an ordinary person to dodge. It was a supersonic cannon. This attack still reaches the boy and he falls to the ground, starting to scream from terrible pain in his ears. These two idiots are starting to rejoice that their plan worked, and they want to finish our guy off with his own weapon. The spider tried to attack Ban Sin, but he simply changes the shape of his weapon, creating an ice shield. It seems that the attack did not hurt him that much. On the contrary, he even likes this situation because now he has no reason left to leave these two alive. He will no longer hesitate. These two idiots are also not going to retreat, and the guy with the headphones tells the main character not to run too far, because now he will rupture his second eardrum. Suddenly he notices that this idiot is running towards the captain's body, and thinks that the main character is about to take him hostage. But he just smiles madly, saying that he is not going to threaten, everything is being done for his own good. After this, the boy uses his ability, giving the guy 1,200 points of strength, but he immediately takes them back, receiving his Stone Fist ability and an additional 212 points of strength. After that, he no longer thinks about the fact that a huge spider is running at him. He simply makes himself a huge fist out of stone and tells him to hit this damn spider in the face. The boy also notices a guy who controls shadows and decides that his ability will also be very useful to him. He simply takes it away. But a sound attack is already flying in his direction, and the guy who stole that girl's sword, do they really think that they can defeat such a guy? At the moment when the attacks were supposed to reach the main character, he simply uses a shadow ability and goes underground. The guy with the headphones in a panic asks his friend to do something because he has already realized that the main character can steal other people's abilities. He thinks that he will now finish off his own pet and simply leave this territory, but only the main character is already behind him and steals his ability to control sound. There was only one guy left, he was already scared, and our main character intimidates him even more by saying in a scary voice that he was left all alone. Banshing decides to offer him a small deal because he really wants to conduct a small experiment. If this idiot agrees, he will do a service to all of humanity, and in return the main character will quickly send his poor soul to hell. After this, the boy decides that it would be just a great idea to combine all the abilities that he has into one whole, after which he makes a pistol from a stone fist that is powered by shadow magic. The shot will be made by temperature control and sound. He came up with this technique specifically to deal with the school principal, but this guy had a unique opportunity to become the first to see her. After he makes a shot that completely destroys everything in its path, the main character would be very glad that his new invention finally worked. After that guy's territory disappeared, he was happy because everything went as well as possible. The rivals were defeated and they received points for the sealed infection. All that remains from this territory is a small spider. Now our hero has nothing to worry about because there is no evidence left. Turning around, he saw a whole crowd of observers in front of him and could not understand what the hell they were doing here. But they came here to find out where the guy who controlled the spiders was. The boy thinks that if it was Yue Guang who interested them, then it was all a conspiracy. Looking back at his friend, he remembers that in a past life she died an unjust death, and therefore he needs to figure out how to get out. The main character makes a very surprised expression on his face and pretends that he doesn't know that guy, while saying that he has the same last name as this girl. This instructor clearly suspects the boy of being involved in the boy's disappearance, because after the territory disappears, it disappears along with all the objects inside. The guards, seeing that their mistress was lying on the ground unconscious, immediately began to worry about her. It was the head butler of their family named Ji Renee, and asked that the girl be immediately taken to the hospital. Our main character asks that the guards not worry too much, because the girl was simply very tired at the competition. But the security didn't like a guy like Ban Xing, and they immediately started asking him about what happened to the girl. The examiner asked that the main character be arrested immediately, because there were many questions for him. Of course, the boy was immediately scared because now the whole crowd suspects him of something he didn't do. He didn't manage to get far because this lady used her abilities that deprived the main character of the ability to move. The dude noticed that the next seeker exam was turned into a damn circus. He asks them to quickly finish their business, and then he will just go on vacation. The boy decides to pretend to be a harmless creature who is very scared and asks them not to use their abilities against him. But the guard was too determined. He thought it was dangerous to face the guy face to face without knowing his real abilities. Suddenly his face and body completely change, and he says that the life of the young lady is more valuable to him than his own, and if something suddenly happens to her, he will kill the main character. Ban Xing was quite in a difficult situation. Experienced high-ranking fighters stood against him, and even if he now turned into a shadow, he would not have a complete guarantee of escaping. In addition, he would reveal his true intentions. The lady warns him that she, as the chief examiner, has the right to get rid of those people who are potentially dangerous to society, but if the main character tells the truth, she will leave him alive. Bang Xing decides that the situation needs to be diffused a little, and asks everyone to calm down. First, they need to resolve all the issues in order. He shows his documents and Yue Xin's documents as well as proof of passing the test. First, he asks them to look and say that they were both able to pass the exam. But suddenly the girl simply snaps her fingers, and all the boys' documents light up with black flames. Although in reality he showed that he felt sorry for his papers, in reality he was already thinking about the power of this girl, and thought that this was the destruction of matter. The examiner is already starting to threaten, because now there is enough energy at the tip of her nails to turn the boy into dust. If he does not tell her what really happened, then he will never be able to pass the exam. The guard is only interested in the fate of his little mistress. She says that for the fact that she was able to get out of the contaminated area, she will have the highest score, on the condition that she will not interfere with them. He doesn't know what connects the main character with the young mistress, but before he listens to the boy, he's going to give him a good beating. And Ban Xing was seriously scared, because if this guy really wanted it, he would calmly punch him in the face. Realizing that things are bad, he shouts that he will tell everything if only they don't beat him. But of course he tells them a fictitious story about how Yue Guan asked him to keep this secret a secret, but he was going to take the school's treasure for himself. The girl checked the area and said that she couldn't feel Yue Guang's breath here, which means that the main character was deceiving. She was tired of putting up with him, and first of all, she decided that she would tear off the boy's hand to scare him. Under pain of death, he continues to lie, saying that the director keeps the school's treasure with himself. Mr. Guan sensed another area of infection and decided to run away. Hearing the name of Mr. Director, the dude decided to warn the girl that he is also a member of an organization that fights against infections, so they cannot act against his order. The blonde girl reports that at the moment the director is in another city to give a lecture. It was strange for her that all the information turned out so strangely. She could not think that Mr. Guan sensed changes in one territory and immediately moved to another. And the director also hides an infected territory in the school that is considered a treasure. While she looked at the frightened main character, she realized that this freak did not kill them because they were useful to him, and now she needs to deal with them. But the girl simply didn't follow, and the guards of that student came to the school grounds and started asking too many questions. Roughly speaking, luck ran out from under the examiner's nose. In such cases, she orders the main character to immediately bring her to that guy, and Bang Sin only benefits from this because, as soon as they see each other, he will finish them all off. Yushin's condition was already stable, but she still had not regained consciousness, so the dude uses his ability and says that he will immediately take her to the hospital. The guard asks that they keep an eye on the main character, because as soon as they finish the interrogation on the school grounds, they will need to arrange a personal interrogation about Mrs. Yue Xin. Looking at how the girl was taken away, he understood that these idiots themselves did not understand what situation they were in and wondered if they could meet again. But now our main character is also not in the best situation, and therefore he needs to figure out how to get out. Since he himself is standing on the edge, it will only be more fun. The examiners led the guy around the school as if he were some kind of prisoner, and all the other students laughed at him, saying that the king of light bulbs, Bai Xing, was coming. It was not surprising for them that the main character even managed to quarrel with the admissions committee, because he is a real loser, and most likely he was caught cheating. He tried not to listen to the insults directed at himself, but suddenly they said the name Yue Xin, who contacted Bai Xing, but even she managed to kick him out of the team. The main character decides that it would be a great idea to lie a little to the examiner, and says that he clearly saw Guan heading in this direction. It wouldn't hurt for them to check the director's office. Unbeknownst to everyone else, he uses his shadow ability, which goes far ahead. Entering the director's office, the girl was simply shocked when she saw a shadow figure. She could not understand why Guan was now here with the ability turned on. The main character clearly remembers his past life and the moment when he was already in the director's office. Such moments are definitely not forgotten. Suddenly, the shadow grabs one of the golden figurines from the shelf and simply throws it towards the girl. While the girl couldn't understand what the hell was going on here, our boy shouted that it was time to open the contaminated S-class territory. After this, the entire school area was covered in red light, and all the students were in a panic, not knowing what to do now. They decide to give us a little explanation about the infected territories, saying that this is a certain area that is controlled by the infected, Within this territory, the laws of reality completely change. Changes in reality also completely depend on the strength of the infected owner. For example, an area of infection of rank C does not pose much of a threat. The director says that in order to deal with the territory, you must first destroy the infected host and wants to tell them about the most important rule of survival in this place. One of the audience rises and decides to ask the question whether the reasons mentioned by Mr. Director caused the recent incident with the area of infection of rank A. The girl with purple hair was seized with panic. She could not understand how the news about this spread so quickly. Was it really that bad? Suddenly, the guy with glasses says that the territories are arranged a little differently. For hunters of different levels, the same territories can have different degrees of danger. The infected who create their own territories bring in much more money, and all the rest who are above rank A are strictly classified. But if we are talking about rank S, then they are already beginning to be of strategic interest. The very fact that the head of the institute tells them about such a high class only means that he no longer poses any threat, or, on the contrary, a situation has arisen that is much higher in level of danger. The director asks for a moment of silence because recently cases of infection have begun to occur more and more often, and therefore everyone sitting in this room should become the last hope of humanity. He asks the students to pay attention to the fact that the mortality rate from Class A infected is more than 80%. Up to 90% infected can create their own areas, but the mortality rate from Class S is more than 99%. Of course, after such a statement, the whole hall was simply in shock and demanded that the director explain to them what the hell was going on here. They thought that it was simply impossible to get out of the battle with Class S, and the last territory had not been defeated at all. Suddenly, a girl with purple hair gets up in a panic and asks the director to look into the future and see if humanity even has a chance of salvation, because he is a prophet. He just says that this is a very good question and warns that in about 3 months the fate of humanity will hang by a thread from complete destruction. The action moves to our main character, who seems to be gradually losing his mind, and says that he finally met an S-rank infection zone, how he missed it. The examiner was in a panic and didn't know what to do, because they somehow ended up in a strong kill zone. She thinks that that golden bull figurine is to blame for everything. The girl decides to turn to the shadow dude, asking Yue Guan what's going on here. But in response, this figure simply remained silent, and then returned back in the body of our main character, from which the lady was simply shocked. She finally realized that Guan had absolutely nothing to do with it, and that all the work of this handiwork was cursed by Bang Xing. And he just smiles devilishly and uses the shadow cover to quickly escape from the scene. The examiner asks to be caught as soon as possible. A guy with a strange ability in the form of octopus tentacles says that he can catch the main character without any problems, and he almost manages to do it. This guy claims that even though he is a low-ranking person, his tentacles are incredibly strong, and being in their arms is like being plunged into the depths of the ocean. Even high-ranking seekers will not be able to destroy them. But our main character doesn't care much about the fact that the guy has some kind of abilities, and he simply dissolves in his own shadow, plunging under the floor. The dude becomes more insane and says that the main character cannot hide in the shadows because his ability can block someone else's aura so that he cannot escape. But instead of being scared, Ban Xing says that in this case he will dive even deeper into the building, where he will definitely not be able to reach it. In such cases, the blonde, whom our main character forgot about, decides to join the battle. Her ability is to summon magical fairies that beat with electricity. Despite the fact that electricity may not reach the main character, the light that they emit will remove all the shadows, and he will no longer have anywhere to hide. Ban Xing was clearly in shock because the situation definitely didn't play into his hands. He couldn't believe that the guy blocked his aura so much that he was able to grab his shadow form. The examiner simply stands in front of him and asks where he was able to get the ability from. Yue Guan, the main character, will only have one attempt to answer, or she will finish him off. Bang Xing decides that now is the time to make a joke on the lady, but she clearly doesn't like it. So she decides to use the ability of complete annihilation in order to teach this damned freak a lesson. But instead of just giving up, our boy uses an ability that hits everyone with a powerful sound wave. They still do not understand that the main character has already lived through this moment and knows about their every step. While the girl was trying to move away from the ultrasound strike, she ordered her entire team to immediately find the main character, because after her fatal attack, he simply could not go far. But suddenly that guard appears who has already taken the final form of the lizard and tells them to take better care of themselves while he goes and finds his young mistress. She gives a new order to her subordinates to follow this guy and quickly find a way out of the area of infection. The students around simply could not understand why the hell the weather had changed so dramatically, and everyone had a terrible feeling. Some thought that this was just the second stage of the exam, and they had nothing to worry about, while the rest understood that this was an area of infection that the teachers could not discern. Still, that girl was able to inflict enormous damage on our boy, despite the fact that he was reborn, but now he was left without arms. But he was clearly not going to accept his fate so easily, and swore that this time he was not destined to lose. He calls the name of the school director, and says that he will be the first to take away everything he has. The teams that took part in the exam were also scared. After examining the territory, they realized that now there was simply no way out of here. The captain of their team thought that this was just another test, and decided to sacrifice his team in order to learn the rules of the new game. It made absolutely no difference to him who died. It was important to save only his own life. The boy turns to his guys and asks them to listen to him very carefully. The blonde confidently states that he has secret information, that this is just part of the plan, and the examiners are now watching them. Only if they stick together they can achieve the best results. Although he is not at that high of a power level, he received an A grade in his tactical planning course, and would therefore do well as a leader. The cat girl remembers that this guy helped them seal a strong monster during the exam, and therefore she agrees for him to become the captain of the team. One of the guys with an unknown ability thought that he was thrown aside. The team captains not only have a greater chance of survival, but will also receive a higher grade in the exam. Suddenly, another guy with an unknown ability approaches the blonde. His name is Chung Yin. He is ready to follow him. But just to begin with, he wants to see what his future captain is capable of. But he only says that when they recognize each other's strengths, only then will they be able to survive. After which he begins to create his lava abilities. After the boy punches the ground in front of him, he says that he can only use this ability once due to his energy level, but the range compensates for this. Not even a couple of minutes have passed when suddenly a huge red bull appears and simply knocks this blonde off his feet, simultaneously punching him with its horns. The entire squad was simply in shock, realizing that their strong captain had just been finished off with one attack. With such damned rules, they definitely had no chance of survival. In a panic, they could not understand which of the rules he had broken. Perhaps it was impossible to use his abilities or destroy the environment. The guys had too little information to understand this. The cat girl simply fell to the ground, mourning their killed captain, and did not even notice that a huge red bull had appeared behind her. While this whole mosquito thing continued, our main character stood on the roof and reflected on the fact that in the face of infection, human life is like a firework that instantly explodes. For him, there are only two sides in this world. You can either die early or try to start fighting and delay your death. In 3 months, the director will release this bull into the city, and from a population of 10 million, only a few tens of thousands of people will remain. The last blow of this bull will turn the city into a desert in which not even grass grows. Our main character does not understand in such cases why we need to weave conspiracies and intrigues. The students began to behave like wild animals who pushed each other on their way in order to survive. Complete chaos reigned on the school grounds in which everything was done absolutely according to the rule that the fittest survive. Those who remained simply fell to their knees and begged higher powers to save them from this madness. Banshin could not understand what the hell was going on here. Was it really all because the strongest boss in the strongest territory had been activated? He understood that in such a terrible nightmare, simply no one would survive unless someone was reborn from the dead. The golden calf is an S-rank infected. When activated, if you move, you will die. If you fight, you will die. And if at least one of the rules has been activated, then it cannot be stopped. The point is that the bull does not see the difference between a living person and buildings. He only sees the difference in colors. And as long as these damned people continue to rage, the infected area will also increase, and the bull will only become stronger. Bansing decided to intervene a little, thinking that such a dangerous bull was turned into a weapon that could destroy the whole world. He uses his ability to change temperature in order not to crash. Now the main character must be as careful as possible so as not to anger the bull again. Even such a minor ability as turning into a shadow can lead to a change in color, and then the bull will target him. But it's not all that scary, and the boy thinks that the worst thing that could happen is the appearance of clouds. Now he urgently needs to find Jiuxin so that she can stay alive with him. Meanwhile, this huge lizard was already leaving the school grounds, and the girl behind him asked him to stop because she couldn't keep up with him. She couldn't understand why they were leaving the school grounds if they were going to grab that damn kid. But for the lizard, the most important thing is the safety of the lady because they are bodyguards. That boy does not pose a strong threat to him and says that they will sometimes keep an eye on him so that he does not play any tricks. She couldn't understand him because he was going to literally finish off the main character, but the lizard says that he still saved their mistress in that territory, so now he can get out of this territory on his own. This lady in dark glasses smiles and says that he is absolutely right, they will not help him, and let the boy deal with his difficulties himself, simultaneously clearing the way for Mr. Guan. When the lizard wanted to know about the condition of his mistress, he was told that the girl was currently in a coma, and therefore he would have to wait a little. Everyone else was already ready to carry out their insidious plan, because bombs were already strapped under the car that could send them flying into the sky. After the beam switch bursts, it will provoke the explosion of a small ball which will activate the bomb. Looking at that lady in a suit, he thought that he was a much better warrior than him, because in a short time he managed to rise from a very low rank, and after Mr. Guan came to power, he, of course, would also receive his promotion. He asks for forgiveness from Mrs. Yue, but he is doing this for his better life, so he asks all these idiots to explode for the sake of his future. Suddenly, a girl with glasses stops him saying that the examiners are coming. The examiners ask to arrange a meeting with their boss because this area of infection was too dangerous for work. She only thought that Yue Guan was still alive, and since she was the daughter of the clan head, they could come to an agreement. But if she attacked the opponents now, she would most likely lose many teammates. The situation was not the best for her, because for their clan, she is an outsider, and if she decides to take any action against them, their head will immediately finish her off. The examiner decides to gain the trust of these people by saying that she knows a way that will help this girl survive, of course, that she will tell it on the condition that they help her. She talks about the infection zone, which is far from so simple, and then talks about her ability, the backpack of emptiness, which was bestowed by a very high-ranking person. Everyone was surprised that she was simply incredibly strong, because she could hide even a living person in this backpack while keeping him alive. Her assistants were surprised that she had never talked about such a powerful ability. The lizard begins to think, saying that if this girl is given the opportunity, then their mistress will definitely be able to survive. She just says that she is not going to run away so easily because their family has earned a fortune from studying infections. Can they really refuse the opportunity if the girl brings their family a sealed core in her backpack? But the lizard says that knowledge is, on the contrary, a very frightening thing, because just having knowledge about the contaminated territory is not enough for a guaranteed victory. He thinks that there are too many infected now, and if they leave them to fight among themselves, then they will have a much better chance of winning. She says that this is a good plan, but only in her backpack there is room for only a couple of people, and if the area of infestation is not cleared, then half or even more people will simply die. The lizard accepts the examiner's conditions, knocking on the van. He says that if danger overtakes them, she will have to save their mistress first. Now, in her plan to gather all the students together in order to arrange an interrogation, any information would be useful to them now. But the lizard doesn't like this plan, because the more people there are, the greater the chance that the rules will work. He proposes to collect information not from living people, but from dead ones. He asks the girl with glasses to use her glasses to look at the traces of death because they now need to carry out an analysis. Her ability is called Vision. It allows her to mark people and follow them within her range of vision. This ability can also work on dead people. Seeing how this team was trying to work, she called them smart people because they don't even count on other people. She also begins to give orders, saying that the girl should interview all the students of the level, and the boy will have to grab all those who run away with his tentacles. This woman turns out to be very crazy, saying that searching for information among dead people is too long, so she will take advantage of the living, let them do at least something useful, and die for her victory. Using his ability to control sound, the main character overheard the entire conversation between them, and thought that catching students in order to extract information from them was wrong. For him, it doesn't matter at all how many more students die, because for him now it was only important to get Yue Guan out. There were too many experienced fighters there, and also the lizard is the most devoted servant who doesn't leave her one step. Suddenly, the main character heard someone nearby and was about to attack, but the girl asked him not to kill her because she might be useful. Bansing could not understand how the girl could be useful to him, and therefore said that she only had one chance to talk about her abilities. In fear, she offers the main character to become bait. After that guy with the tentacles catches her, he will be able to find out the secret of his ability. The main character could not understand what kind of strange power this girl had because she was rank A. He began to assume that this was the gift of foresight or the detection of abilities. While the boy was trying to find out more information from this girl, he didn't even notice how several tentacles were already behind him and were about to attack. And the main character becomes more and more insane with every second and says that these freaks will definitely regret that they underestimated him all this time. After this, he comes up with a simply brilliant idea to give this girl a new ability. Now Xiao Xiao's ability was psychic detection, and her power level became 796. Everything started happening too suddenly. The main character simply throws the girl aside and says that now is the time for real fun. Banxing directs a dark flame at the girl, but for some reason the guy with the tentacles lights up instead of her. The lizard man grabs the van that Ms. Yue was in and runs away from the scene, telling the rest of the team to leave too. Suddenly that bull comes running to the scene of the battle. They broke the rules and attracted his attention, and so now that guy is simply pierced through with huge horns. The examiner was simply shocked by what was happening because she still did not know that our main character had come up with a plan to defeat them all. She simply opens a portal and in fear tries to run away from the battlefield. But our boy is also not going to just look at what she is doing, so he again calls on his strongest weapon and says that they only have a few seconds left to live. The entire enemy team simply scatters in different directions, not understanding how everything turned against them. While the girl sat in fear on the ground, our main character looked like a real boss of the rocking chair, because not only did he deal with the enemies with his strongest technique, but he also managed to steal all the abilities of these people. Xiao simply could not believe the scale of the destruction, because in 5 seconds he was able to deal with the strongest representatives of the school. And Banxing just smiled smugly, because it only took him a few seconds to come up with such a cool plan of attack. It turns out that the boy used his abilities to force the bull to react to the examiners, after which, with the help of his light ball, he did not allow anyone to come to the rescue and simply attacked them with his most powerful attack. Not only was the main character able to correctly use his abilities, but he also makes excellent use of the rules of the contaminated territory for his own benefit. But Xiao didn't know that the main character was able to read her thoughts and immediately asked the question if he wanted him to save her in this terrible world, because she praised him so much. Xiao was a little shocked after learning that the main character simply took away her ability. He asks the girl not to ask unnecessary questions, because he can already read her thoughts and understand everything. She tries to calm her thoughts a little so that the main character does not understand what she is thinking about, but he asks her not to worry, because if he did not see any benefit in her, he would have sent her to the next world long ago. This girl is perfect for the role of his assistant, who will be able to communicate with him using thoughts, and Xiao has just such an ability. He pretends to be a real villain and suggests that the girl cooperate with him and help him gather other students in order to survive. Leaving her with new strength, he asks Xiao to hurry up a little, because now every second counts. And finally, the main character warns that he knows about the girl's every thought, so it's better for her not to come up with plans to eat from him. Of course, the girl is not going to do something like that. She now has a chance to survive and will also be able to save most of her classmates. In just a few seconds, our main character managed to tell the whole plan that he had come up with. He wants to gather around himself the strongest students that there can be, and Xiao must help him with this. She admired our main character very much, and thought that at this rate he could become a very important person in the future, and therefore she agrees to follow him as a leader. The action moves back to the lizard guard, who managed to save Mr. Yue, but only all the other participants and examiners were dead. Suddenly our main character returns to them and says that one of the examiners is alive. She just moved into the backpack of the void. But the lizard is clearly not going to just talk to our boy. He asks one of the guards to return to the car and keep an eye on Mrs. Yue while he fights here. But Banxing is also far from a stupid guy. He warns that he can cause several more attacks that will be several times stronger than the previous ones. But for now, he will heat the ground in order to cause a change in color and summon a bull. Suddenly, our hero decides to use an ability that controls sounds and speaks through the lizard's thoughts that the cousin of that girl was going to finish her off in order to take the post of head of the clan. A bomb was planted under the car, and 2 people on guard are traitors. But these words do not calm the lizard, and he says that he doesn't care whether it's true or false, because if a war breaks out in their family, the weak will try to attack the mistress, so he will first finish off the main character. The boy understands that a fight cannot be avoided. He essentially doesn't care, because this is just a great opportunity for him to try out his new skills. He uses that guy's ability and summons tentacles instead of his hand to repel the lizard's blow. But the guard was clearly stronger than our main character in close combat. This is definitely his element. It's surprising that with such levels of strength, he somehow manages to resist, and if nothing is used, he will simply be crushed by this damn dinosaur. The lizard simply starts laughing at the boy, saying that he is a real weakling who talked too much about his own strength. Banxing no longer understood what he should do now, because any of his abilities would trigger the rules. The only option was to use the power of transformation, but this would also trigger the rules. Suddenly, our main character decides to use a trick and tells that guy in the suit to quickly go and finish off Mrs. Yue because that's what her cousin ordered them to do. The lizard man is immediately distracted from the battle with the boy and switches to another guard. And this dude at first doesn't understand how the main character knows that he is actually a traitor, but still accepts orders from him. Still, he understood that Brother Yue Guan did not give up on him, after which he continues to carry out his plan with a bomb planted under the van. But it goes without saying that this was all Ban Xing's cunning plan in order to distract this huge lizard, who, without even thinking, rushed to protect the young mistress. With his claws, he simply crushed all his organs, but he still says that he will fulfill the last will of his master, and then everything will fly up into the air. If the lizard wants it so badly, he will take them with him to the next world. Before the lizard finally finishes off this idiot, our main character decides to give him a piece of his power so that he can use the ability. Of course, after using the ability, the contaminated territory rule is triggered, and this guard is simply knocked down by a bull at great speed, like a new Tesla. The lizard looked at his hands and turned to the boy. Because it was he who made him finish off that dude, there were other ways to solve the problem. But Ban Xing says that he absolutely doesn't care about the life of this lizard. Even if he can't save his mistress, he will still be of some use in the future. The main character offers him a small game and asks him to listen carefully. Ban Xing tells him about the rules of this territory, about those places where it is safe for him to be. He asks that he not make the same mistakes as his partners, and simply obey his rules. Suddenly, the main character uses the ability of deep-sea suppression and grabs a blonde girl who has been pretending to be dead all this time. She couldn't understand why the hell she couldn't use her abilities. But Ban Xing tells her that these are no longer her abilities, but his, after which a new ability is added to our boy's collection that allows him to create electrical discharges. The next chapter begins with some strange guy who takes out a strange piece of paper from his jacket, saying that now he will protect everyone with this talisman that he was saving. The power of this talisman is that it creates a protective barrier that prevents infection from touching them for half an hour. He calls this ability monetary protection and says that he can finally leave this damned territory. But his happiness did not last long, because as soon as the talisman was used, a bull came running, which did not care about this protective aura. He simply pierced the boy right through in front of the other students. They simply could not believe what was happening, because that boy had just used such a valuable talisman in order to survive, but still went to the next world. Do they have any chance at all to survive? One of the students remembers that all those guys who used their abilities changed the environment in one way or another, and it seems that he just managed to reveal one of the most important secrets of the territory. Remembering all the moments when his friends died, the boy is simply overcome with horror, because the rules that must be observed inside the territory only become more numerous with every second, and there are probably also those that they do not know about. Suddenly, the dude just shuts his mouth and tells all his teammates to just shut their mouths because even the slightest changes can lead to their death. Of course, he forbids them to use their abilities. This guy has a very bad feeling because, in his opinion, after breaking one rule, their number increases. Suddenly, the guy has a panic attack, and he just starts yelling that one day there might be a rule that will prohibit them from breathing. Now the team leader begins to panic and asks his friend not to joke like that, because in this case, they simply will have no options left to survive. This dude just falls to his knees and starts cursing the person who came up with these damn rules. Now the person who can save them simply won't appear. But the team leader still tries to calm him down by saying that it is too early for them to go to the next world, and despite the fact that the rules are constantly changing, they must continue to live. Suddenly, Xiaoxiao appears and says that now she has become the last one who can save all the students, because she is the strongest girl with the ability to read minds. She turns on Sigma mode and asks everyone else to close their mouths and listen to her carefully. Xiaoxiao amazes everyone with her abilities because she can not only read other people's thoughts, but also understands people's feelings, and at the slightest change she notices it. After all this horror began, she decided to use her abilities to the maximum because she was overcome by panic, and she managed to find something interesting. The dude was really eager to find out what she managed to find, but she just asks him not to interrupt her. She tells them about our main character who was reborn and knows absolutely everything that will happen in the future, and now he is also going to destroy all of humanity. The guy was simply shocked by such a statement and began to ask a bunch of questions. Maybe Ban Xing is not a person at all. At one point, the girl simply can't stand it and starts yelling at these idiots, telling them not to interrupt her important story. Ban Xing has completely rejected his human side and is now going to destroy humanity. They urgently must come up with a plan that will help them defeat him, or the end of the world will come. She uses her ability to transmit thoughts so that the main character does not understand her plan and shows them what she actually saw. Both guys were shaking with fear, not understanding how they should fight against such a terrible monster, But Xiao warns that now he is able to read their thoughts, and most likely he already knows that the girl betrayed him. The lady decides to use the main character's abilities against himself because he simply steals other people's abilities and tries to use them at the same time without revealing their true potential. Now Banxing also has her ability to read other people's thoughts, but Xiao came up with a cunning plan, and using her skills, created a protective barrier with which she can protect her own brain from its influence. She points to the two and tells them a plan to make the most of their abilities, so she encourages them to take advantage of the situation. One of them was a little shocked because Xiao had just revealed their abilities, but this is not surprising because she is able to read other people's thoughts. She also adds that after the boy learned about the rules, he can now safely use his compression ability without fear of dying. The boy is able to create 2 balls of different sizes using air, between which an isolated space appears. Xiao thinks that she has chosen the right partners, and invites them to go with her into battle against the main character in order to save all of humanity. The guys immediately got the idea to take revenge on this freak, because he uses his classmates to increase his own strength. They cannot allow him to do whatever he wants. They decide that they will need to gather all the students in order to come up with a strategy in which everyone's abilities will be combined, because this is the only way to defeat this damned main character. But this girl also turns out to be a double agent who simply controls all the students on the school grounds. But she also read memories from the future in the head of the main character, and therefore now she has her own plan. She thinks that those who can read thoughts are the strongest students of all. Suddenly she just starts talking about how amazing our main character is, and that all the students will definitely bow down to him, and one day she will marry him. Unfortunately, Banxing heard all this horror and couldn't believe that he chose such a partner. Meanwhile, the battle between the lizard and our main character was still going on, but he only thought that as soon as the girl examiner appeared, he would be ready and immediately attack her. The main character thought that the 3 examiners would not have enough combat experience and would rely only on their own abilities. But it seems he was wrong. The boy tells the lizard that he is leaving, but with the help of his ability, he conveys to him the idea that he should protect Yue Guan and finish off the remaining examiners even if the exam is already completed. Using a recently stolen skill, he ties a rope to the roof and, like a real Spider-Man, simply flies away. The lizard guy couldn't understand why our main character, having such an incredible ability to steal other people's powers, chose to remain in the shadows. With such power, he could easily destroy all of humanity. Now he can't be distracted by such questions, and it's better to focus on the mission. He thinks that the main character decided to test him in this way. He draws several conclusions. There were 2 traitors among the examiners, and Ziguan has been dead for a long time. There was a bomb planted under the car, but he still could not understand why that lady examiner did not come out, because if she was not wearing red, the bull would not touch her. There is also a young lady whom he miraculously managed to save, and now she is under his full protection. Suddenly a portal opens and an examiner comes out of it, who has slightly changed her image. She was going to go on vacation to the sea after the exam was over, but it seems she won't be able to do this. She immediately turns to the lizard man. She just wanted to hide until this is over, but their actions led to the S-level infection territory being activated, and she asks to join forces to destroy it. The girl believes that now the most important task is to find the favor of all members of the G family, and it is better for them to leave the main character and that girl alone for a while. The lizard doesn't think for a long time and agrees, but asks the lady to put Lady Yue Guan in her backpack so that he can fight more freely without thinking about her safety. She clearly liked this guy. She is surprised that there are still smart people in the G family, and the girl invites him to get a job with her after this whole nightmare is over. Meanwhile, Xiao managed to spread the rumor that our main character is the only hope of humanity that can save them. All the students immediately began to say that they never considered him a loser and tried to treat him well. But these two had their own plan. They wanted to start fighting the infection, but in fact they wanted to say that Banxing was the main cause of the infection, so that the rest of the students would attack him. Xiao also continued to play the role of a double agent. She could not even think, but all the students easily shared with her the knowledge of their abilities. She did not expect that among the students there would be so many truly destructive abilities. The girl again wanted to start praising the main character, but immediately threw her thoughts aside because as soon as Banxing discovers the polluter, they will need to destroy him. The next chapter begins with us being shown a ceiling full of light bulbs, and how our main character begs the director to let him go because he has done nothing wrong. Banxing was put up for auction by those damned rich people, after which Mr. Director bought him. The main character hoped that he would help him make his life better, but he was deeply mistaken. The director hung over his head like a ghost and asked the boy for forgiveness, but he simply cannot miss such an amazing opportunity. It would be extremely stupid on his part. He and his assistant were conducting some kind of experiment on the main character, and the director asked him to endure the pain a little because it should end soon. After he made the first incision, the boy screamed in pain and lost consciousness, but still he managed to wake up and not die again. Perhaps the director somehow continues to maintain life inside the guy's body, but what the hell is he doing with him? He simply transfers the boy's important components to his assistant and asks them to be safely stored. Our main character's condition was clearly not the best, and he could not believe that the director had taken absolutely all the components from his body and carefully laid them out in jars and forced him to look at them. Bansin still has his right hand, and the director wants to take it away too, so that after his death the abilities cannot be transferred to other carriers. The girl agrees with his plan and says that she will hold the main character tighter so that he doesn't twitch again. She hopes that this hand of God will help them. After the director left the room, the boy turned to the girl with purple hair and began to beg for her to finally finish him off. Of course, she can easily do this, but they're not done with the boy yet, so he'll have to wait a little. The main character simply has no idea how powerful an ability he has, because the sphere of light is capable of granting others simply divine abilities. Of course, the director foresaw the successful development of Bansing's abilities, and therefore decided in advance to find another use for them. According to her version, the director is the most powerful person on Earth and can calculate absolutely everything. But even he has not yet managed to understand whether it is possible to turn the ability of endless rebirth into eternal life. Bang Sin finally comes to the realization that the director never intended to sell it at a higher price. He bought it in order to use it in his own plan and therefore limited it. The girl makes a very crazy face and offers the boy a small deal so that he will transfer his divine abilities to her. In return, she will finally give him peace. Our main character was already in complete despair, so he didn't even contradict and simply agreed to give her what she wanted. Finally, the girl's cherished wish came true, and she received the ability of the Sphere of Light. Now it will remain with her forever. At that moment, the boy had a strange feeling as if his ability had changed. The hand of God had appeared, which was capable of taking away abilities from other people and transferring them to other people at will. Suddenly, his berserk mode is activated, and the guy begins to wonder why people have treated him all his life like a pig that was sent to slaughter. After this, he shouts out for the Sphere of Light to return back to him, and to the girl's surprise, the main character manages to regain his ability. Hearing strange screams, the director returns back to the office and sees a simply terrible picture in front of him. Banshing is not going to accept his fate and decides that he will not become an experiment of this damn guy, and therefore decides that he will plunge the scalpel straight into his eye, and then the memories end. Xiaoxia was suddenly overcome with horror, because after watching his memories, she literally began to experience terrible pain and began to look for our main character. Meanwhile, our boy stood on the roof and asked the girl if she had any secrets from him. But Xiaoxiao simply cannot understand why the hell this idiot climbed onto the roof and asks him to come down quickly because everyone is very worried about him. Banshing asks the girl to communicate with him only through telepathy. He won't share his thoughts because she already knows them. He's just interested in what she thinks about what's happening. She cannot understand how people can be polluted, but the main character asks her not to be so stupid, because that's how they got their abilities. The boy remembers that he managed to restore his eardrum after that sound attack, and in fact, even an explosion can be survived by those who have abilities. But at the same time, their hearts mutate. He also remembers that they were going to sell him as an animal, and that such terrible things constantly happen on this planet. So a person's life in this world is nothing. She makes a fool of herself and says that they are still studying at the university and are too young to think about such things. Guys the age of the main character are constantly coming up with plans to change the world. But suddenly he says that Xiaoxiao has been hatching a plan all this time to betray him by teaming up with other students and asks her not to pretend like that anymore. Her stupid smile disappears at that very second and horror appears. She simply cannot understand how he was able to read her thoughts because she put up a protective barrier. The main character just hangs his head and starts laughing like a psychopath, which is why he never fully trusted people. Banshing is going to show the girl his memories in which there is no trace of care or pity, memories in which he is treated like a pet. But the lady with glasses is not going to feel sorry for him. Humanity needs a leader who can put an end to this damned infection, and this certainly cannot be done without victims. Our main character is clearly outraged by the fact that Xiaoxiao so easily throws away people's lives, and yet in terms of strength, she is only rank A. In this case, the boy suggests that all the idiots who are now gathered here should simply transfer their abilities to him, and then he himself will be able to control the fate of humanity. Xiaoxiao begins to get angry, because this is far from the guy she thought about. She calls him a real devil and that he has completely lost his mind. The girl points to the roof and says that the main character has sealed the infection center inside himself. They will have to finish him off in order to save the remaining students. All the guys were inspired and thought that together they could resist the universal evil. One of them even brought some weapons with him because he did not have enough strength. The team captains ask the rest to be as careful as possible because they can activate the rules at any time. If all students can combine their forces into one, they will be able to finish off the main character with one blow. While they were engaged in transferring energy, one of them stepped forward to deliver a powerful attack. According to his calculations, his power level was equal to 10,000. Suddenly, Banxing simply raises one finger up, and a huge shadow copy of him appears in the sky, flying on electric fairies, which is why he did it. Xiaoxiao immediately guessed that the fairies would collect solar energy all the time, and the shadow clone would block their suns. So the main character decided to activate one of the rules. Banxing says that these idiots understood everything absolutely correctly, because after the shadow hangs over him, their colors change, and changing color is a violation of the rule that will call the bull here. Everyone was thinking about what could be done, but the guy can only touch physical objects but cannot touch the shadow. The main character invites them to play a game in which they will attack and he will defend. Even if they use their strongest techniques, he will be able to repel. Suddenly, the guy is enveloped in panic, and he asks Banxing to remember his ability to read minds, and pointing at Xiaoxiao says that it's all her. The names of this girl came up with a plan to deal with him. Seeing this coward, the main character tells him to give him his ability, and in this case, he will spare him. He turns out to have a very useful skill. With his help, he can create streams of energy for individual objects, which means that the boy will be able to connect this with his hand of God. Many balls of light scatter throughout the area and take away their abilities from all the students. Did they really think that they could defeat Ban Sin if they united? Now the list of the main character's abilities was simply huge, and these students were of no value to him. Maybe it's time for the kids to go to the next world. All the students simply lost their minds, their levels instantly dropped to level 1, and there had never been a moment when they felt such terrible weakness. Xiaoxiao was furious that her plan did not work, and she calls the main character a real devil, saying that the director will not just leave it like that. But he only mocks his classmates, saying that their punishment will be the first level. Now they are not capable of anything and do not have their skills. Banxing clearly looked inspired because now he only had to wait one night. He finally had the opportunity to seal the golden bull. The action moves to the director, who has a vision that something has happened to his university. He needs to return quickly, and the girl invites him to fly on a plane. But he asks the girl not to worry because he likes older methods of transportation, and in addition, he does not like the sky. The director asked the girl to stay here and keep an eye on the situation, and he and Lin Xiang would go back. He asks a girl who looks like Harley Quinn to leave with him, because without her special seals, he simply cannot cope. She just warns him that the seal of the demonic bull was destroyed, and her powers were restored, but she would not refuse to replenish her collection. Meanwhile, at the university, the examiner asked the lizard man to quickly place the girl in her portal, because they still had a lot of work to do. He was almost already inside her backpack, but he just noticed that the girl was suspiciously hurrying him, and immediately jumped back a couple of meters. She couldn't understand what the hell this idiot was doing, but the lizard asked the girl to be the first to enter the portal and prove to him that she wasn't deceiving them. It turns out that she perfectly understood that the slightest change in the environment would trigger the rules, and therefore she wanted to see this for herself. The girl is clearly not going to take risks and asks the lizard to obey her orders because he understands perfectly well what kind of power lies in her nails and that she can instantly finish him off. But he says that when a girl uses her abilities, her nails also change color, so she risks being instantly killed. And the girl apparently doesn't care at all about this, and she says that if the rules work, then they will both go to the other world. The examiner is determined and says that she will not leave him until the guard gives her Mrs. Yue. He has no choice but to obey her orders. He agrees to hand over the mistress to her, but asks that doctors be with her at all times. He says that this is an ordinary doctor who poses no danger at all, so she can enter her portal. The girl does not notice anything suspicious in this request and agrees to his conditions, after which she opens the portal. And all this time the lizard was carefully watching how the girl used her superpower. It took her only 3 seconds to make a portal, and for the mistress to have time to enter it, 1 second would be enough. The doctor began to carry the stretcher on which Mrs. Yue was lying, but for some reason this lizard just tripped her and she fell. The examiner couldn't understand what the hell was going on here, but the lizard man did all this to distract her. While he has the perfect moment to attack, he decides to take advantage of it and simply throws a van at her. The examiner immediately said that he was a sick idiot who was tired of living, but he thought that there were only two outcomes of events. She would either close the old portal and open a new one, or she would immediately run into her own portal. All the same, the girl decides to run into her portal. This is of course a good choice, but the lizard has already thought out his plan a long time ago. He remembers that there is still a bomb planted underneath the car, and decides to take advantage of this by blowing up the examiner along with the car, while covering the doctor and Mrs. Yue. The guy was simply shocked when he saw the power of the explosion, because such a wave, even in the form of a lizard, could turn him into a mountain of ash. Suddenly, our main character appears, takes away the examiner's ability to create portals, and says that the lizard man managed to pass the test. The main character praises him for such an interesting plan, because he gave the girl the illusion of choice, but she did not know that a bomb was attached to the car, and therefore she lost. Although he was pleased that the boy was praising his skills, he still remained on his guard because the main character had just become stronger once again. Banshing shows him his new throne, which he created with the help of the abilities of his classmates. It's impressive, isn't it? But the lizard is somehow indifferent to such things, because for him it's just a flying chair. It's immediately clear that the worlds of these two are completely opposite. Seeing that the guard was not impressed with his creation, he decides to immediately redo everything and create an airplane, or better yet, a flying saucer. They just sat on the roof and waited for the next day to come. The lizard couldn't believe that everything happened so suddenly. But the main character says that for a level S infection zone, these are trifles. If not for his abilities, they would have to sacrifice tens of millions of people. The lizard is surprised and thinks that the main character has some kind of secret information, but the boy asks him not to ask. It's better that he tell him in detail about the area of infection before it gets dark. Firstly, the bull statue is a sealed entity. Someone locked it and covered it with some unknown golden substance. The infection zone begins to expand after contact with a person occurs. Secondly, in order to awaken the golden bull, simply expanding the area is not enough. There is a certain number of rules. When the color of large objects changes, the bull wakes up and begins to destroy everything in its path. The third rule is that the change in color depends on the light that falls on the object. After the sun has fully risen, all students will change their colors. That is, they will break the rules of the territory. And the fourth rule, after the bull destroys all the targets in its path, its true essence will appear and then the main character will be able to seal it. Only he asks the lizard not to ask for details because he won't tell anyway. But the lizard guard is now interested in something completely different, because after the sun sets, the color will change again, and then the bull will begin to attack them. The main character just laughs and creates another portal, saying that while he is being turned into minced meat, he and Mrs. Yue will hide and watch this. The lizard took the protagonist's words too seriously, and began asking a lot of questions, but our boy said that this damn dinosaur has absolutely no sense of humor. Bansing calls himself the new king of light, after which many balls filled with light appear around him. Suddenly, the girl doctor begins to panic and asks if they can survive all this horror. Having summoned several spheres of light to himself, he is not afraid of the rule of color change, but they do not protect others from danger. So he also called upon the electric fairies. In order to make the lighting brighter, he just needs to slightly change the size of the sphere, and he tries to transform his ability. The main character compares his ball of light with the sun and says that now they shine the same. After the sun completely sets, the color will change absolutely everywhere, but not in this area. He promises the lizard and the doctor that he will give them the opportunity to survive and share the light, but only they will not cause him problems in the future. But suddenly they begin to wonder what they will do after everything is over, because soon the director who can see the future should return. And when the infected territory disappears, they will not have an easy fight with him. But the main character thinks that despite the fact that the director is able to see the future, he could not have predicted his rebirth. In a past life, he had already managed to witness the sealing of the territory and how it divided his body and abilities. But why then did he still allow him participate in these events? The lizard still didn't care what the main character said. He was only worried about the state of his mistress and the fact that she had not regained consciousness for a long time. The doctor begins to panic and says that she is not a particularly significant figure here, but even despite this, it seems to her that the girl needs constant supervision. Suddenly, the main character looks at them angrily, and the lizard turns back into a man. He says that this is not a cowardly attempt to escape. He just must accompany his mistress always and everywhere. The main character opens the portal and says that everything will be fine with the girl. She is very overtired, and when at least one strength parameter is restored, she will wake up. But Bansin would not want the girl to regain consciousness until the infected territory has completely disappeared. But before that, he asks them to wait a little. It seems that there is something inside the portal and he was interested in looking. Having taken out the examiner's personal belongings from the portal, he realizes that all the portals are connected and all objects simply fall into one dimension. He simply throws out all the unnecessary garbage that was left over from the previous owner of the ability and says that there is enough space in this space for the two of them, which is quite surprising. But suddenly Ban-sin decides to intimidate them, saying that they better be careful because if the main character stays alive, he can open a portal at any moment and finish off these idiots, and if he dies, they will forever remain sealed in another dimension. They understand perfectly well that if they remain outside, they will die in any case. So it is better to go into the portal in which the chances of survival are much higher than here, with the demonic bull. Suddenly it started to get dark, and the dinosaur talks about how he was never afraid of infection anyway, but there's some kind of incomprehensible feeling inside. The main character picks up his idea and says that it is the chaos of the territory that the dinosaur simply cannot cope with because everyone is afraid of death. They have a heartfelt conversation, and the guard thinks that he simply cannot understand how strong a person must be in order to cope with such territory. And there are also terrible people in the world who are ready to do anything just to save their lives and the lives of their loved ones. The main character says that he respects the lizard, so he will not delve into his thoughts, but he is interested in learning about the family in which he works. To be honest, he himself knows little, but he knows that the split in the Z family appeared after the leak of some information. The lady's father, the head of the family, decided to write an article about how he treats the infected and proposed his ways to use their abilities as effectively as possible for the benefit of society. Ban-sin is surprised because he just found a person who is the author of the theory that people receive their abilities as a result of infection. But he cannot believe that their family is in such a difficult situation now because he made a great discovery. The lizard doesn't know more. He can only assume that the head went through all these experiments for the sake of his own daughter. If it suddenly works out and they survive, then the main character will be able to personally ask the head about everything. Suddenly, the boy heard terrible screams and asked them to continue the conversation later because he had something important to do. The devilish bull at tremendous speed simply destroyed all living things in its path, leaving not even the slightest chance of salvation. After some time, the sounds disappeared, and the main character thought that there were no more alive except them. The lizard invites him to finally start sealing. This is of course a very cool proposal, but the main character does not understand at all how this can be done. Now this damn bull can only wander around the surrounding area in search of new victims. This will be the only chance for them to get closer to him. The boy comes as close to him as possible and thinks about the plan. The idea comes to him that this bull can simply be deprived of the ability to perceive colors. He directs his own shadow at his feet because it does not cover such a large area, and since this is an ability of the A rank, it can be improved. The main character decides to increase his power level to 3000, and the shadow completely covers the hellish bull. The lizard was pleasantly surprised because when he looked at the sky, the area of pollution began to disappear. Realizing that he is in complete control of the situation, Ban-sin brings back those people who were hidden in the portal. They were surprised that everything was already over, but the main character begins the second stage of his plan and decides to seal the bull in a spatial portal. He just needs to increase the bull's strength to 4000 energy, and then he can do it. After closing the portal, the main character rejoices in victory, but unfortunately he is not the director and cannot create a full-fledged seal. So the hellish bull was frozen for a while, and now the boy will be able to use it in battle at any time if he finds himself in danger. After this, the boy says that he has a small gift for them, but he can't stay here for long, so he has to go. He simply jumps off the building, but thanks to his abilities, he creates angel wings for himself and calmly flies away. The main character urgently needs to find a guy named Kim Huckett, and he uses his eye ability to see with eagle vision. Suddenly, the girl finally wakes up. The guard is of course happy about this, but she cannot understand how long she was unconscious and where she is. He tells her that she lay in a coma for a day and a half, and Ban-sin has already left and everything is fine with him. The doctor measured the girl's strength level and was simply shocked when she saw the result. There were 1200 units, which was too much for a person who had just awakened her abilities. The dinosaur says that they will deal with this later, but now they need to get out of here because the main character ran away too quickly. Apparently he understood that something was about to happen. Yua doesn't think much and agrees. She urgently needs to talk to her father and they will talk about the main character later. She couldn't understand why the dude was still using his ability and maintaining his dinosaur form, as if he was still afraid of something. But looking at the destruction around her, she saw a world that was on fire, and her classmates who had fallen in this battle, she simply couldn't believe that only a day and a half had passed. The main task of the dinosaur is to protect the life of the young lady, so he asks that they leave this damn place together as soon as possible. Meanwhile, the action moves to the guy who at the very beginning was going to sell the main character if he couldn't pass the exam. His girlfriend thought that she loved the blonde very much and would like to marry him, but his career just started to take off, so he doesn't have time for things like a wedding. Suddenly, a strange girl with a dog on a leash runs into the room and says that she really liked this girl, she wants her to stay with them. The girl with green hair was simply in shock because the guy said that he had no one. In fact, he was not lying because he and his wife had divorced a long time ago, and his daughter remained with him. She just said that the guy is a damn liar and she loved him in vain. She says that she will never return here again. But he himself asks her for forgiveness and says that the lady will not be able to leave the apartment because his daughter really liked her, which means she will have to stay for a longer time. He receives an important call at work because today this guy was supposed to collect money from 10 debtors. The blonde asks him not to worry because he has already collected the debt from 8 and also received a couple of receipts from them. Everything is going great in his life. His boss trusts him completely. His daughter has awakened her abilities even though she is only 10 years old. All that remains is to find the main character and finish him off, and then life will completely improve. Suddenly, he receives another call and some voice says that he will soon kill the guy. He responds by saying that he has a bad signal and asks to call back, but he was clearly scared. They tell him that a new job has been found for him, but the boss has already approved his vacation, and it would be nice if they found someone else for this job. The main character was in touch all this time. He asked in such cases to make a report about today, but he had already done it. He had already talked about how he visited 10 stores and made a profit from 8. But suddenly his gaze switches to Bang Sin, who is standing on the stairs and loudly mocking the blonde. He calls the guy well done, although this ability is rather weak. The blonde simply cannot do anything against it. The main character simply touches him on the shoulder and tells him to do the same thing to himself as he did to the people who owed him money. The blonde is frightened by the mere sight of the main character, because if he carries out his order, he will simply die. Bang Xing notices something strange in the guy's behavior and tells him to obey his orders, and then in return, he will give him a small gift. He simply takes and gives this guy all the abilities that he currently has. For the main character, this is of course nothing, but for the blonde, this will be the most painful death. The main character decides to give him an additional 200 power points so that the guy suffers longer, and in addition takes away his ability to deform metal. The ability, of course, is not very good, but it may be useful to him. In this case, Ban Xing decides to begin his plan, and remembers that one of the blonde's debtors once threw himself under the wheels of a car. While in the background the guy is turned into mincemeat, the main character remembers that he still has to implement many ways to go to the next world. Next up, he decides that it would be nice if his daughter also pays for her dad's deeds. He urgently needs to visit her. But upon opening the door, the guy is greeted by a strange man dressed in a huge dog costume. The main character definitely did not expect such a strange turn of events. The little girl also meets him and thinks that the boy came here to play toys with her. She apparently managed to have an operation and transplanted the legs of that girl. The girl continues to behave very strangely, thinking that he wants to play with that guy in a dog costume. But Bang Xing doesn't understand what could be funny in this situation. Now he will show her real fun. He simply takes away her ability to change objects and tells the girl to go and find her father. Maybe he will agree to play toys with her. The girl simply curls up into a ball from her dog costume and rolls away from the main character onto her father's belt. Suddenly, the boy experiences terrible pain that he cannot endure. A huge force begins to break out of him, and the guy cannot do anything. It seems that the seal has expired. The main character just falls to the ground, and half of his face turns into the face of a hellish bull. But what the hell is going on? Why did this situation happen to him again? He opens a portal and summons a shadow, but he simply doesn't have enough energy to support it, so he needs to add another 3,000 to cope with it. With the help of a shadow, he transfers the demonic aura back into the portal, after which he can forget about this problem for a while. His confidence was gone, and now he began to be afraid because the shadow seal began to gradually collapse, and he was losing control over his own body. At this rate, the main character would not be able to last even 3 days. While we are shown how that blonde man hits his head against the wall, our main character begins to think about releasing this damned bull along with the contaminated territory. But Ban Xing cannot just give up because he swore to himself, and even managed to be reborn in order to take revenge on the damned director for his torment. The girl had already managed to find her father, who was carrying out the order of the main character, but she seemed not to see this and still invited him to play. Suddenly, Ban Xing regains his ability, because now he simply cannot waste his own strength. He needs to come up with some kind of plan so that he can restrain the power of the hellish bull. The main character simply uses the ability of invisibility to quietly leave, but in parting he curses the blonde, saying that he is still going to deal with his boss. He is going to quickly find Mrs. Yue because her father often researches pollution, and maybe he can help him create a seal that will restrain the power of this damned bull. Suddenly, the actions are transferred to some scientist who was eating noodles. It immediately seemed to him that that guy was not all at home. But fortunately for all of them, the professor decided to prepare in advance for this situation. The guard was surprised that the scientist was so smart, but she even managed to deceive his daughter. She was rather interested in how her father managed to guess everything. But her father simply jokes unsuccessfully that he was given bad vitamins as a child, which is why he grew up so strange. The girl clearly did not like such strange humor. In fact, it turns out that he constantly sent all sorts of people to him so that they would watch him while doing everything he says, of course. After this, his psyche was shaken, and now he thinks that he is a god like Light Yagami. The scientist tries to justify his own actions by saying that he tried to stop the growth of his strength at about the level of 800. Although the girl does not feel sorry for the guy, her father still acted very strangely. But he asks his daughter not to feel pity for him, because this guy is a real demon in the flesh. At the age of 12, he managed to send a little girl to the next world and didn't even blink an eye. At that time, he was unfortunately absent from the country, so his brother took responsibility for this incident, and he did not receive any punishment. However, over time, the details of that case surfaced, and now someone with power wants to control his activities and the results of his research. You begin to worry because her father is now in great danger, and she has just awakened her abilities so that she can protect him. The dad is just happy that after so much time, his daughter has finally acquired the skills and invites her to organize a party in honor of this in a couple of days. He asks the girl not to worry about anything because he is capable of handling everything, but he also wants to meet our main character because he managed to interest him.